Have you ever noticed how a single rude remark or careless gesture can ruin an entire day? A stranger cuts you off, a co-worker dismisses your idea, a family member questions your choices, and suddenly peace vanishes. The Stoics saw this as one of life's greatest traps. Surrendering your mind to what lies outside your control. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Anger is not simply caused by others. It is born from the judgments we attach to their actions. What if you could break this chain? What if, instead of reacting, you could remain steady, calm as a stone in the storm? In this journey, we'll explore timeless lessons that will help you master your inner world and walk through life unbothered, no matter what others throw your way. 1. Face the hidden roots of anger. Have you ever noticed how anger sometimes flares in ways that feel far greater than the small slight that sparked it? A passing insult, an impatient driver, or a careless interruption, and yet the fire burns as if something deeper was struck. The Stoics would say that these moments reveal not the power of others over us, but the hidden fractures within ourselves. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When anger rises, it is rarely the insult itself that chains us, but the wound within that has not yet healed. Let me share a story. Sarah, a young professional, stood before her team presenting an idea she'd worked on for weeks. Just as she began to build her case, a colleague dismissed her with a wave of the hand. That's been done before, let's move on. The room fell silent, and within Sarah, a storm erupted. Her heart pounded, her face burned, and every part of her wanted to strike back, to prove herself worthy. But then, in a rare moment of pause, she asked, why does this comment pierce me so deeply? She realized it was not just about her colleague. It was about a long-standing fear of being overlooked, of being judged as unworthy. The Stoics would say that anger is never about the thing itself, but about the judgment we attach to it. This is the wisdom of philosophy. The external event is neutral. Our interpretation is what gives it the power to wound. Epictetus warned, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Sarah's anger was not born from a simple interruption. It was born from her own belief that being dismissed equated to being insignificant. By examining this belief rather than lashing out, she began to understand that the true battle was not with her colleague, but with her own unexamined fear. The Stoics teach us that when anger strikes, it is like a messenger pointing to the parts of ourselves still in chains. Each flare of irritation is an invitation to ask, what judgment lies beneath this feeling? Do I fear being unseen, being disrespected, being powerless? These questions are not meant to shame us, but to awaken us. For only by seeing clearly can we begin to loosen anger's grip. Seneca wrote, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. That brief delay is not emptiness, it is the space where reason can steady the soul. Imagine another common scene. You are driving to work, and someone swerves recklessly into your lane. Your pulse quickens, your instinct is to curse, to lean on the horn, to let the heat of injustice spoil your morning. But what if, in that instant, you asked, is this fury really about this driver? Or is it about my belief that I must always be in control, that nothing should disturb the order I expect? When you look at it this way, the stranger on the road is not your enemy. They're simply the one who exposed where your mind still clings. This is why the Stoics urged constant self-examination. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reminded himself to expect rudeness, ingratitude, and disrespect. By expecting it, he robbed it of surprise. By examining his own reactions, he reclaimed his peace. He did not see the offender as the cause of his anger, but as the mirror reflecting where his own discipline faltered. In this way, every irritation becomes a teacher. Every insult becomes an opportunity to strengthen the soul. So how do we practice this in daily life? Begin by keeping what I call a mirror journal. The next time you feel provoked, write down 3 things. First, what exactly happened, without judgment, just the fact. Second, what emotion arose within you and how strong was it? Third, what belief or fear might be sitting beneath it. Perhaps the anger at being interrupted is really the fear of being invisible. Perhaps the rage at being cut off in traffic is really the discomfort of not being in control. When you name the hidden cause, the surface anger begins to dissolve, and you see the moment not as an attack, but as a chance to know yourself more deeply. This is not an easy practice. It requires courage to admit that our fiercest emotions are not dictated by others, but by the stories we whisper to ourselves. Yet, the reward is profound. Each time we pause, each time we look inward instead of lashing outward, we weaken anger's hold. We move from being puppets pulled by every provocation to becoming masters of our own responses. This is the essence of Stoic freedom. Remember, the one who angers you conquers you if you allow it, but the one who awakens your anger and meets only your calm, your clarity, your refusal to surrender peace, that one becomes your unknowing teacher. In such moments, you no longer see the rude co-worker, the impatient driver, or the thoughtless stranger as enemies. You see them as stepping stones in your training, each one giving you the chance to strengthen your command of the soul. So the next time heat rises in your chest, pause. Ask yourself, what judgment beneath the surface is being exposed? Then remind yourself of the Stoic truth. No one has power over your peace unless you hand it to them. This is the way to transform anger from a chain into a doorway, a passage leading not to reaction, but to mastery. And once you have glimpsed this freedom, you begin to understand. Anger is not a force you must suppress or fear. It is a signal, a guide, even a gift, if you have the courage to look at what lies beneath it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "I am not harmed by what happens. I am only harmed if I see it as harm." Carry that truth, and you will discover a strength that cannot be provoked. Now that we have seen how examining our inner judgments transforms anger, let us step further. For the Stoics remind us, mastery is not only about looking within, it is about choosing how we act without. In the next chapter, we will explore how to respond with intention rather than impulse, so that others do not write the story of our day, we do. 2. The freedom to choose your response. Have you ever felt your whole body tighten because of a careless remark, only to realize later that your reaction only added fuel to the fire? It is one of life's most common traps. We surrender our peace in an instant because we forget the one truth the Stoics repeated over and over. Between the things that happen to us and the way we respond, there is always a space. In that space lies freedom. Epictetus put it plainly, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Too often, though, we let other people's words, actions, and judgments seize the pen and write the story of our emotions. But the Stoic path asks, what if you took that pen back? What if you chose your response instead of letting someone else dictate it? Let me paint a picture. John, a young designer, sits with his old friend one evening. The conversation is easy until his friend leans back and says with a smirk, "You're still doing those little art projects. When are you going to get a real job?" The words cut sharper than intended. John feels his chest tighten, anger rising, a betrayal blooming inside him. His instinct is to defend, to lash out, to prove his worth. But instead, he draws a breath. He remembers that he is not obligated to follow the script his friend has written. In that pause, he realizes the remark says more about his friend's unease in his own path than about his own worth. By choosing silence and calm, John saves himself from a pointless quarrel and walks away with dignity intact. This is the lesson. Insults are sparks, but the fire is ours. We decide if the spark dies on the ground or ignites the forest. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself each morning that people he met would be meddling, arrogant, dishonest, and ungrateful. By expecting this, he created a shield of anticipation so that when it happened, he did not flare up. He simply chose his response. You and I face the same choice every day. A coworker interrupts you, a stranger cuts you off, a relative questions your decisions. These are sparks. But the true blaze only begins if you hand over your freedom in the heat of the moment. The Stoics practiced a discipline to claim back that space. A simple pause, 3 seconds of stillness. In those seconds, you do not suppress what you feel, you witness it. Anger rises, you name it. Here is anger. Hurt appears, you name it. Here is hurt. Then you ask, is this really about them, or is it stirring something in me? Perhaps the rude word stings because you still tie your value to the approval of others. Perhaps the impatience on the road enrages you because it brushes against your craving for control. By seeing clearly, you loosen anger's grip. Seneca once advised that anger should always be delayed, for delay weakens it, and the mind returns to reason. That is the power of the pause. It reopens the space where reason can step in before passion takes the reins. Picture a family dinner. An uncle, half joking, half serious, sneers across the table. You're always traveling. Don't you ever want to settle down? Your first instinct might be to fight, to argue, to feel small beneath his judgment. But instead, you stop. 3 breaths. You remind yourself that his words flow not from insight into your life, but perhaps from regret in his own. You choose. You might answer gently, I love seeing the world, it gives me life, and then move the conversation elsewhere. Or you might simply smile and let the remark pass into silence. Either way, you remain the author of your response. You are not dragged into someone else's narrative. This practice does not mean indifference, nor does it mean burying emotion. It means allowing yourself to feel, but not be enslaved by what you feel. It means remembering that dignity lies not in perfect calmness, but in refusing to be ruled by impulse. A teacher once received a bitter email from a parent, accusing her of being unfair. Her first reaction was indignation. How dare they misunderstand her so completely? Yet she stopped. She took 3 breaths and reminded herself of her values: patience, fairness, service. Instead of firing back with defensiveness, she wrote, "Thank you for reaching out. Let's discuss how we can best support your child." The anger dissipated, the conversation shifted, and she walked away truer to herself than if she had answered with fire. Every time you do this, you are shaping your character. You are reminding yourself that other people may cast their stones, but only you decide whether to pick them up. The pause is a shield, the reflection is a mirror, and the choice is your sword. Over time, this practice rewires the very way you meet the world. The rude coworker no longer holds power over your mood. The judgmental friend cannot shake your center. The stranger's outburst on the road fades into the background. You stop being a puppet, jerked around by every tug of circumstance, and become instead the one who moves with intention. The Stoics believed that freedom was not granted by society or fortune, but by mastery of the self. Seneca wrote, "He is most powerful who has power over himself." That is the heart of this lesson. Every pause, every breath, every choice you make in that sacred space between trigger and response is a declaration of sovereignty. It is the quiet reminder that you are not at the mercy of another's words, and that no one can dictate your story unless you allow it. So when the moment comes, and it will, when someone tries to drag you into their storm, remember the truth. There is a space. It belongs to you. In that space, you pause, you reflect, you choose. That choice is where your strength lives. That choice is where your freedom begins. And as we carry this lesson forward, let it guide us into the next one. For choosing your response is only the beginning. To guard your peace fully, you must also learn to set boundaries so that the storms of others do not endlessly batter your shore. That is where we now turn. 3. Boundaries protect inner peace. Have you ever felt the weight of always saying yes, even when every part of you wanted to say no? It is a quiet exhaustion that builds, leaving you drained and resentful, not because you do not care about others, but because you have abandoned the duty to care for yourself. The Stoics saw this clearly. Without discipline over your time, your energy, and your attention, you are not free. Epictetus reminded us, no person is free who is not master of themselves. Boundaries, then, are not walls of selfishness. They are the fences that protect the garden of your soul, letting in what nourishes you and keeping out what poisons your peace. Picture this. Mia, a single mother and small business owner, often found her phone buzzing late into the night. Friends would call, venting about their problems or asking for favors. Out of kindness, she always answered, even when her eyes burned with fatigue, even when her daughter was waiting for her attention. But one evening, staring at the phone as another request came through, she paused. She asked herself, if I give my energy to everyone else, what remains for my child, for myself? For the first time, she chose differently. She sent a message, I care about you, but evenings belong to my family. Let's talk tomorrow. In that single act, she discovered the strength the Stoics spoke of, the courage to live by principle rather than by pressure. Her friend understood. Her peace remained intact. Marcus Aurelius once compared the soul to a citadel, an inner fortress no one can breach unless you open the gates. That is what boundaries are, the choice to keep your citadel strong. Without them, you live like a house with no doors, open to every intrusion. With them, you stand firm, not against the world, but for yourself. And when you guard yourself, you can meet the world with clarity rather than resentment. How then do we begin to set these boundaries? The Stoics would counsel us to act with both reason and kindness. Identify what truly drains you. Perhaps it is the constant last-minute demands at work, or the endless conversations that spiral into negativity. Then communicate with calm firmness, not in anger, but in truth. A simple statement like, I need quiet after work to recharge, so I cannot take calls in the evening, says enough. And once spoken, hold to it. Consistency teaches both you and others that your peace is not negotiable. Take David, a college student whose roommate often borrowed his things without asking. At first, David stewed in silent frustration until he realized his anger was not at the roommate's behavior, but at his own refusal to set a limit. He decided to speak. "I'm fine with sharing, but please ask me first. It helps me keep track." At first, the roommate slipped, but David gently reminded him, reinforcing the line he had drawn. Over time, the behavior changed. More importantly, David discovered that his dignity had been restored. He had proven to himself that peace does not come from controlling others, but from commanding his own choices. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about making room for what matters most. The Stoics lived with this discipline daily, choosing not to be ruled by the demands of the crowd, but by the compass of reason. Seneca said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." Learning to say no with respect is part of that lifelong training. For without boundaries, you are pulled in every direction, and soon you no longer know which path was truly yours. Yes, it can feel uncomfortable. You may fear disappointing others. But remember this: those who respect you will adjust, and those who do not were taking more than they gave. Boundaries reveal not only who you are, but also who belongs beside you. And when you choose them, you protect the privilege Marcus Aurelius spoke of, the privilege of becoming who you truly are. So ask yourself, what is one boundary you need to set this week to reclaim your peace? It may be as small as shutting off your phone at dinner, or as large as telling someone no without apology. Whatever it is, try it. Write "Protect Peace" in the comments to seal this commitment for yourself, and subscribe if you want more reminders to strengthen this inner citadel day by day. Because in the end, boundaries are not the end of love or connection. They are the very foundation that makes real connection possible. When you respect yourself enough to say no, you create the space to say yes to what truly matters. And with each yes rooted in freedom, you are no longer drained by life, but strengthened by it. That is the Stoic way. And as we carry this truth forward, let us take the next step. For once you learn to guard your peace with boundaries, the world will still test you with criticism. The question becomes, can you take the harsh words of others and turn them into fuel for your own growth? That is where we now turn in the next chapter. 4. Criticism as a mirror for growth. Has a harsh word ever left you wounded long after the moment passed? Perhaps a manager dismissed your work, a family member questioned your choices, or a stranger cut you down with careless remarks. It is natural to recoil, to feel defensive, even to doubt your own worth. But what if criticism was not an attack at all, but a mirror? What if it showed you not who you are, but the parts of yourself you have not yet learned to face? The Stoics believed that every difficulty, every discomfort could be turned into training for the soul. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." In the same way, criticism, when met with courage, can become a sharpening stone for character. Consider Alex, a young software developer who poured himself into a project he was proud of. During a review, his manager told him flatly, "This code is sloppy. You need to step up your game." The words cut him deeply. His face flushed with anger, and the thought blazed through his mind. How dare she? His first instinct was to defend himself, to fight back, or to sulk in silence. Yet in that pause before reacting, he remembered that the insult was not the true source of his pain. The wound was older, the fear that he was not as competent as he hoped to be. And so instead of arguing, he asked for specifics, took the feedback, refined his work, and walked away stronger. The criticism had not crushed him. It had revealed where he still needed to grow. This is the Stoic way, not to deny the sting, but to use it. Epictetus said, "If someone tells you the truth, you should think of it as a gift. The sting is not proof of weakness, but of opportunity." When criticism wounds us, it is often because it strikes against a hidden fear, an insecurity we carry quietly. If you dare to examine why it hurts, you turn what was once an enemy into a teacher. Imagine a family dinner where an aunt remarks, "You're always busy with work. You never make time for family." Your first impulse may be to snap back or to bury yourself in guilt. But take a breath. Ask, is there truth here? Perhaps you have been distant, or perhaps her tone carries her own frustrations. By separating fact from opinion, you see more clearly. The fact may be that you have been busy. The opinion may be her judgment. The lesson may be that guilt is rising because you still struggle to balance duty with personal ambition. With this clarity, you can answer calmly, "I hear you, and I am working on balance." No argument, no collapse, just a steady hand holding your peace. Criticism, of course, is not always just. Some words are cruel, thoughtless, or meant only to wound. The Stoics would say, "Let them fall." Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily not to waste his energy on the malice of others. If the words contain no truth, they are empty, and they pass like smoke. But if they contain even a grain of truth, that grain can become nourishment if you choose to use it. The discipline lies in distinguishing one from the other, not reacting to every blow, but reflecting to see what is worth keeping. Take Sarah, a freelance writer. She submitted an article only to hear back, "This isn't what I expected. It lacks depth." The words crushed her at first. She felt herself sink into doubt. Perhaps she was not good enough. But after the first wave of hurt, she reflected. Was there truth here? The piece had been rushed, and she knew it. The criticism touched her fear of inadequacy, but it also illuminated a real weakness in her process. By asking for detailed feedback and revising, she not only satisfied her client, she grew more confident in her craft. The remark that once stung became a stepping stone toward mastery. The Stoics remind us that freedom lies in mastery over our own responses. We do not control the words spoken to us, but we control whether they enslave us. If every insult must be met with anger, then we are not free. If every critique must unravel our confidence, then our peace belongs to others. But if we can pause, reflect, and sift the words for value, then we remain sovereign over ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Criticism is simply another event. It cannot harm you unless you decide it will. The key is to create space between the sting and the story. Breathe before reacting. Separate the judgment from the fact. Ask yourself, why does this touch me? Is there something unresolved within me that this remark has revealed? In that space, you transform criticism into clarity. You move from being wounded by every arrow to using each one to strengthen your armor. And so the next time harsh words find their way to you, resist the urge to harden or to lash back. Instead, let them be what they are, information. Some of it will be worthless, discard it. Some of it may shine a light on where you are still learning, treasure it. For in the end, criticism does not define you, it only offers you a choice, to be broken by it or to be shaped by it. And when you choose the latter, you discover a freedom few ever taste. The harsh word becomes a lesson, the wound becomes wisdom, and the very thing meant to provoke your anger becomes the very path by which you rise above it. Carry this with you. because as we move forward, the Stoics will guide us to an even deeper practice. Letting go, releasing what no longer serves us, so that the soul can stand unshaken and free. That is where we now turn. 5. Letting go to find freedom. Have you ever gripped resentment so tightly that it felt like carrying a stone in your chest? Perhaps it was a betrayal that replayed in your mind like an endless echo, or a regret that haunted your nights. The Stoics understood that these emotions are not just feelings, they are chains. To clutch them is to bind yourself to the past, to people and events you cannot control. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Yet, holding on to anger or sorrow turns the obstacle into a prison. Letting go is not weakness. It is the act of reclaiming your freedom. Consider Emma, a young artist who once trusted her closest friend. That friend betrayed her, spreading rumors that cost her a promotion she had worked tirelessly for. For months, Emma's mind was consumed. She replayed confrontations in her head, imagined revenge, and let her bitterness seep into her work. Her creativity dulled, her joy vanished. But one evening, exhausted by her own thoughts, she understood a truth the Stoics never stopped teaching. Resentment harms the one who clings to it, not the one who caused it. She visualized her anger as a heavy stone she'd been dragging, and in her mind, she set it down. The betrayal was not erased, but her chains were broken. With that release, her art flourished again. This is the essence of Stoic practice. To let go does not mean pretending the wound never happened or excusing injustice. It means choosing not to carry the fire that burns only you. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you replay wrongs, you suffer them 1,000 times, even though they only occurred once. The Stoic way is to suffer once and then to free yourself. There is a simple practice to help. When anger arises, name it, write it down. I am angry because, in naming, you drag the feeling from shadow into light. Then visualize it as something you can release, a stone you set aside, a balloon you let rise, a coal you drop before it burns your hand. Finally, return to the present. Ask, what is within my control right now? What action aligns with my values today? In doing this, you free yourself from the weight of the past, choosing to live in the present, unburdened. Imagine a workplace slight. A colleague takes credit for your idea, and bitterness coils inside you. The temptation is to stew, to replay, to fantasize about retribution. But instead, you acknowledge, I am angry because my work was overlooked. You picture this anger as a balloon tied to your wrist. You cut the string in your mind and watch it drift away. Then you decide, at the next opportunity, you will present your ideas directly to your superior. The wrong remains, but it no longer governs your peace. Another example. Michael, a student, feels crushed by a professor's remark that his essay lacked originality. He obsesses over the unfairness, convinced his efforts were dismissed. But through practice, he reframes. He writes, I am angry because I feel misunderstood. He imagines the weight of his resentment as a backpack, and in his mind, he takes it off. In its place, he channels energy into his next essay. He cannot alter the grade, but he can choose how to respond. In that choice, he transforms humiliation into resolve. The Stoics knew that life is filled with offenses, both great and small. But they also knew that clinging to them is a form of self-sabotage. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. Letting go is exactly that. a refusal to grant past injuries the authority to dictate your present state. It is not about the offender. It is about your own liberation. Of course, letting go is not a single act. It is a discipline practiced again and again. Old wounds may resurface, but each time you release them, you grow lighter. With every letting go, you are less tethered to the past and more rooted in the present. And in that present, peace becomes possible. So ask yourself now, what weight are you still carrying? Whose shadow still lives in your mind, though they are long gone? What grudge poisons your days, though it changes nothing? Picture it clearly and imagine setting it down. It may not vanish in a moment, but with each practice, it loosens its grip. As Seneca once said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." You have already endured what happened. Do not endure it again by choice. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means refusing to chain your soul to what is no longer within your control. And in that refusal, you step into freedom. Carry this wisdom with you, because once you release the weight of resentment, you create space for something greater. The Stoics knew that emptiness is not a loss, but an opening for gratitude, for clarity, for the grounding that makes life whole. And it is gratitude that we will turn to next, as the practice that anchors the mind when storms threaten to scatter it. 6. Gratitude as inner strength. What if the secret to calming the storm inside you was as simple as shifting your gaze? Imagine being trapped in traffic, late for an important meeting, anger building like a fire you cannot contain. Now imagine that in the very same moment you turn your focus, however briefly, toward what remains steady, the breath in your chest, the strength of your body, the opportunity still waiting once you arrive. The Stoics understood this shift well. They taught that peace does not come from controlling the world outside, but from training the mind to notice what endures within. Seneca once wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Gratitude is that act of rejoicing. Take David, a delivery driver worn down by a long day. A customer berated him for a late order, traffic stretched endlessly, and his phone died, cutting him off from everyone. He could feel the frustration rising like a tide ready to break. But instead of snapping, he paused. He reminded himself of 3 things: his work that allowed him to provide for his family, the music on the radio that carried him forward, and the simple truth that tomorrow would bring another chance. These were not grand revelations, yet in focusing on them, his anger softened and his center returned. Gratitude, the Stoics would say, is not denial. It does not mean pretending the insult never came or the hardship never arrived. Rather, it is the discipline of choosing to see more than the wound, to remember what is still whole. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself to dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them. Even when chaos pressed upon him as emperor, he returned his mind to what was enduring and good. This practice did not erase the burdens of empire, but it dissolved the bitterness that might have broken him. You can practice this as well. The next time anger stirs, stop and notice it. I am angry because I was disrespected. Then deliberately turn your mind to 3 things you can give thanks for, no matter how small. Perhaps it is your health, a kind word you heard earlier, or simply the chance to breathe and begin again. Finally, reframe the moment. Ask, does this insult or delay truly outweigh the many gifts still present in my life? In most cases, you will find it does not. Gratitude is powerful because it does not merely calm you in the moment, it reshapes how you meet the world. With practice, it builds resilience. The rude remark loses its edge, the setback its power, because your mind is trained to rest, not on what is missing, but on what remains. Cicero called gratitude the parent of all virtues, for from it springs patience, compassion, and strength. So the next time life presses on you with disappointment or anger, remember this: peace is not something you chase, it is something you create. And you create it each time you choose to see what is still good, what is still yours, what cannot be taken. Gratitude is the hand that steadies the heart. Carry it with you, and you will walk through storms with a calm that no one can disturb. You've just walked through timeless Stoic lessons on mastering anger, guarding your peace, and choosing calm over chaos. Remember, no insult, no criticism, no passing slight can take what you refuse to surrender. The keys to your emotions are in your hands. Each pause, each choice of reason over impulse builds the life of freedom you deserve. If this journey resonates, subscribe to walk further with us and comment "calm" below. Stay steady, stay strong, and prepare for what comes next.